Hello, everyone, and welcome to Diversely Me, Myself, and I, a self-care journey. And this is Diversely Geek, and all my wonderful team joining us today for our mental wellness series, and the last of three for Mental Health Awareness Month. Although we will still be bringing you some absolutely amazing continued conversations and discussions with a lot of wonderful people who've agreed to come on and just keep being part of this journey towards mental wellness and self-care. And I am, of course, Miss Neisha T Mulchan, your CEO of Diversely Geek and the Diversely Me Foundation, and also known as, let's see, the Geeky NP and Neisha M, your geek mom. But I'm all of those three. And it's okay to have three personalities in one person because they all make up me. Right, Sharon? Isn't it okay to have three personalities?
I have a few alter egos too.
Those we love them, and that, my friend, is a great coping strategy as long as we do it the right way. So, today I am welcoming back our wonderful co-host and wonderful collaborator from SpeakUp.co, Sharon Blady.
Yeah. Hi. It's great. This is fun being back. And yes, I have a variety of identities too, from being I'm just a geek girl in general to some days I'm a little more Holtzman, others days I'm a little more Wolverine, and so yeah, it's a wonderful skill. It's great to be here, and I'm so happy to have our guest on tonight. This is so cool.
I know. So this is our first in a series. I know who's this guy who just
Who is this? Yeah, this mystery man that's joined us.
Who just dropped in right there. I don't know. So this is the first in our series of welcoming wonderful guests who we've known, who really embrace our message of embracing your superpowers, your inner geek, and expressing that in your everyday life. This is Mike Faber. And tell us a little bit about yourself, my friend.
Sure. My name is Mike Faber. I am the host of the Earth Station 1 podcast. I also host the Earth Station Who podcast, a Doctor Who themed podcast that we've been doing both of those podcasts since the golden age of podcasting, as we like to say. We've been around since 2010, and we've been doing a weekly podcast pretty much ever since. We all talk about all forms of geekdom, and we basically, talk about especially about passion and about how geek is, geek equals passion. Because people who come on the show and go, well, I'm a musician, or I'm a sports athlete, and I'm not a geek. What am I going to talk about? And I look at them right in the eye usually and say, look, you're passionate about your sport, you're passionate about your music, you're passionate about gardening, you're passionate about nature, road trips, whatever. That's what you're passionate about. And what do you do when you're passionate about something? You geek out about it. And that is exactly what you guys talk about here on your show. And it was a perfect fit for me to join you guys with this. But when you brought it up, I was like, yes, I want to be there. So
absolutely,
it's pretty awesome.
You and I always have these like backstage chats about things, and I'm like, we need to share these things. We need people to be able to hear it in a live setting, because we have, as a geek community, we have beautifully rich conversations about what it is we're passionate about in terms of a positive fandom, how it has helped us, guided us, shaped us, molded us. But other times we don't get to share it with everyone, and so this is our wheelhouse, basically, and our forum to be able to do that. So today, if you see the banner below, I don't know, where am I going? There. It says today is that thing. We have an open discussion on stress, worry, and anxiety, and the coping strategies we can learn from and through our fandom passions. And I know that it sounds like a really strange concept, but the fact is, those healing hobbies and intuitive innovations really are the things that bolster us and support us through life. So we're going to go ahead and begin today's conversation. And just remember, if you are with us, please feel free to comment and ask questions. I am so excited because we have Shirley Burton with us again. Yay! I can't wait for a question. You know, she's going to give us a great one. So, or they are going to give us a great one. And we have someone new, Liz Fear. Oh, feel free to go ahead and post the question. I cannot wait. Okay, so today's session is called Strange Stress and Worry. Oh my, how we can find balance through our favorite fandoms. So, you know, it's been a rough, stressful, and straining year for the whole globe. The pandemic has set in motion a unified state of fear and worry. And, you know, the media does drive the immediacy of those worries. So it's right there present. But while we need to know, what's most important is to develop and adopt strategies that help us to maintain functionality in our thoughts, in our actions, and throughout the body systems. We are directed by extensive neuroendocrine pathways that work together to keep us breathing, safe, active, intelligent, thoughtful, mindful, and presently aware. For the most part, over a lifetime, we learn and come to know how to adjust for these situations that create anxiety, stress, worry, memory fugues, excitation, or inhibition.
Well, and the thing is that we learn those things, but sometimes it seems like the systems just stay in overdrive. And that's been happening a lot this year. And those hormones and neurochemicals just keep releasing because they sense the need to protect us. So they keep protecting us. And that the problem is with that is that we then continue to manifest a slew of physical and emotional symptoms. Everything from body tension, headaches, and all the great, wonderful forms that those can take, palpitations, shortness of breath, inadequate breathing patterns. A lot of us find ourselves breathing very shallowly, and that doesn't, do us any favors these days. Insomnia, sleeping disorders, rapid thoughts, body tremors, disconnection, abdominal pain, and sometimes these create their own cycles that then again keep perpetuating that anxiety and protection mode. So you get a wonderful little vicious circle going on there. And so again, like so many of the physical symptoms that we deal with, again, because they're directly related to stress, strain, worry, the perpetuation of those neurochemical feedback systems just keeps going.
Exactly.
That's why we really need to help the world at large. It is to actively engage in strategies that can help detrigger or disengage those stress responses. That's where meditative practices, journaling, engaging in health, pop culture, and healing hobbies that will make you feel better. It's basically intuitive innovations, and our fandom passions really begin to play a huge role in helping us decompress, unwind, and de-stress. They become allies in our battle against the efforts of stress.
That's absolutely the truth. And that last line is so important, and we're going to really talk about it a lot today, how we can dive in and tap into the sources and resources of those healing hobbies, the intuitive innovations like our creative and innovative mind, and just the fandoms that we love so much, to be able to be the ally when we're battling with stress. Which, I mean, we're just a year and a half into this pandemic. It's certainly not over. We may be 50% to 60% at a success rate, which is fantastic, right, compared to where we've been. But we're still in a perpetual motion of healing. So what we're gonna, I wanted to, before we dive into the fandoms really quickly, I wanted to just show a couple of these little hobbies that we engage in here at home when we know we're having stressful moments, and where we could just put our feet down, our hands down, and just like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to breathe. I'm going to do this and I'm going to breathe. So I know many times I've told you about the fidget spinner. I keep showing it to you every time. But the fact is, it's a very important part of my strategy. We also have this wonderful state of artwork that we do. So my daughter made this.
Oh, it's awesome.
Isn't it adorable? It's a simple little puzzle that you can buy and you put together. And when you put the light on, like, that light just gives you this sense of, come on, it's Wally and Eve.
Of course.
I mean, it invokes everything, right? Right?
Of course.
It's amazing. So, having things like that, and I've shared with you guys how I will just take Chopper, and you guys ready for this, right? And just let him yell at people for me. Yell at people for me, Chopper. And then, we have, of course, our Dungeons and Dragons. We're ready for today's conversation, Sharon.
Yeah, well, I got my D&D stuff behind me. There's figures literally right about there on those shelves. My dice.
And how about the fact that you can just take some lovely, just take your dice, just take your dice and roll. Take your dice and roll, because that sensory stimulation of rolling those dice actually triggers a lot of positive. There's a lot of positive feedback, has a double meaning to it. What we mean is positive feedback. Okay, the good stuff, the good sensations. So, and then my last one, but we have many more, is something like my lovely friend Astrid, that for her calming self, she will make these lovely little bows.
Oh, those are adorable.
Aren't they
amazing? I like that.
And I just love wearing them. See, I told you I was going to wear a bow tie. Ha! Got it.
And
I've been thinking I would have shown you my most recent embroidery project.
I heard you. Bow ties are cool.
Bow ties are cool. You see, okay, I should have worn my Avengers tie then.
Okay, so, even us, listen, we engage in the silly. That, my friend, is what I'm saying to you. We all need to know what it is to engage in the silly and the happy and the joyful. So I'm going to really talk about start on probably a medium that I'm not sure that everybody would have tapped into. Yes, Liz, bow ties are absolutely cool. Wait, I have to put it up. Bow ties are cool. I agree with you.
Oh, yeah.
We have a lot of lovely people joining. Oh, yeah.
Liz has good taste.
So, just a few days ago, I was sitting, and I've been dealing with a cold. So sometimes, because, with my immune system, I just have to take a break and sit. And I turned on Netflix, and I found a series called Lenox Hill, which is a series, this is cool too. So, which is a series about, doctors and the staff that work at Lenox Hill Hospital in New York. It's a docu-series technically. So it's reality TV, but in a sense it's a docu-series, because the way that they're going through the language and the engaging, the conversations and the dialogues and even the monologues are very instructional. They're very supportive. So we're seeing these physicians and the nursing staff and the adjunct staff living through real life, tragedies and high level stress surgeries and patient cases. And, when you're dealing with a patient, you have a face, right? You have to be a certain way. You have to have a professionalism. But, when it's a difficult case, it will stress you, and you're dealing with that. And that is part of my life as well, because, I'm in medicine and family practice and neurology. And I wanted to just say that the providers are realistically openly showing us the daily experience and what it takes to keep their patients safe, but also to keep the business lines managed. And they talk about medical breakthrough and progress. And you know what? I felt so much pride and joy and just a sense of hope about being in my own profession, sitting there and watching that series. No, I'm not a neurosurgeon, but I adore neurosurgery, and I work in neurology. And it helped me to reconnect to my reason for being in healthcare. These docuseries have actually become very important for my own healing. There are a few other medical docuseries that I feel very strongly connected to, and they've helped me in building confidence in myself. I may not be that provider. I may not have made the breakthroughs they did, but it helped me to have more confidence in what I'm doing here with DG, what we're doing together, Sharon, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, one of the neurosurgeons in Lenox Hill just blew me away. Every single surgery, before they go in, the team, he leads them in mindfulness practice and visual imagery for focus. I was like, yeah, I adore this. And I love that he does it. And then he does it with the patients. I was like, see, I connected to that so wholly. So I know that both of you had one docuseries that you felt really connected to.
Yeah, Mike, I like yours. You go first because I like
me throwing me under the bus. No,
you throw you under the bus. I'm just more excited about yours than mine.
Well,
I'm not excited about it, but
no, it was always good because at first I was like going docuseries, but I had to think about it for a moment, and there is one that it helps me relive my childhood and brings me back to times when I was much younger or growing up, and just nostalgia right and left. And of course, what I'm talking about is the Netflix series The Toys That Made Us, which is just amazing. Each episode is a different topic about the different toys, and they've had anything from Barbie dolls to wrestling to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to the Transformers. And it's just awesome. And it is even Star Wars toys, and it was just awesome. And it's fascinating, even if it's a toy that doesn't fascinate me or that I really didn't have an interest in growing up, there's a story behind it, and it's awesome to learn about that, the connections that people did. Or you see the picture of the guys in the the storerooms with the big cigars. Oh yeah, the kids will just love it, it'll be great, type thing. And the show is just amazing to see how they did that. And it's just so much fun, and they're continuing to make them, which is even better. So it's pretty awesome.
I think that the title really explains what they're trying to share with us. The philosophy that engaging in playfulness, and having something that has a tactile stimulation to it that evokes a very positive and a healthy and a connective response is an extremely important part of our growing and learning process. So I want to say one thing. Do you guys see all my toys around me?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I was going to say, right? Nobody can see what's up on my top shelf here.
No. Please, if anyone tells you that toys are for kids, say, yeah, they are, and I'm a kid.
Yeah.
Remember to say that, please, and thank you.
Yeah.
Right? We're all children. We're children till the day that we leave this earth, because we're the child of someone, and we're still learning. It's a growing process.
Well, but it's interesting because our generation is the first generation that really has captured their inner geek, and to be able to, come out and say, yeah, we love playing with toys. We still love our nostalgia and such. Because you don't see people that were my parents' age and stuff have as much. You did. Don't get me wrong. There were toy shops and nostalgia all the way from, probably from the beginning of the last century. But nowadays, it's more acceptable when you go into an office or something and you see people who have toys on their desks and such, more than what you do. You wouldn't see somebody like my parents, my dad, who, had, pictures of his family. God forbid he would have, a wind-up robot or something, from when he was a kid, or a World War II something another,
and what would that have meant to him? So in terms of his own growth potential, it's fascinating to me. I jumped in on you for a second.
That's okay. That's what this is about.
I have toys from when my parents were teenagers, and the comic books that they read. And I talk about that because those are so important to their learning process. And the reason that we were able to so easily adapt and enjoy the geek world is because I had two parents who enjoyed it in rural Trinidad. So it's to tell you how wide-reaching having an opportunity to play, how wide-reaching and how extremely relevant it is to anyone's growing process, no matter where you are in the world. If anyone is on the chat and has a very specific toy that they thought really, or a game, board games, Jenga, that really, please throw that in here.
Well, this is, and what I loved about Mike mentioning the toys that made us is that's a show that I've watched with my kids, and what's been really interesting is, like you say, like sometimes you watch the ones that don't necessarily, it's like a toy that you might not have had. What's really fun for us is when it's here's the toy that I had in my childhood, and we've still got it. So we've got toys that are like the Lego collection that exists started with my brother and I, and our characters that didn't have moving arms and legs. They were just the little one piece things. And that collection has just built over time as, it got passed on to my boys, and then as layers and layers. And now my grandkids, Lego got shipped over there. They're getting their own Lego as well. And it's just this continuum of things. And it's really fun to be able to have, to learn the stories with them of some of the background stuff. Because when I was buying these toys and I was a kid, I wasn't really concerned about who the product designer was at whatever company, or, and to sit there and go, oh, that's what's behind one of my favorite things. And, when people, like you're saying about the whole kids thing, when I was my oldest one, when we were living in Toronto, my Mother's Day and Christmas presents were always action figures and other things that he could buy from the comic store down the street, because he knew that I would like them. And so he would, go there with his dad and this and that. And it was wonderful, but it was so funny because not every other mom was, what did you get for Mother's Day kind of thing? And I'd be like, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer character.
Why?
I got
exactly. And that was the awesome thing about it. As my son got older, he basically was getting into the gaming and geekdom also. I raised him completely to it. I took him to his first Dragon Con when he was 4. And, now he's 22. And so he's, grown up with it, and he cosplays, he does the whole thing. And, he now, when at my birthday, and he gets, stuff for me, he buys 2 of them because he wants one also, which is awesome. It's like, my wife hates it when I go out and we go shopping and to Target or Walmart, because that's the first place him and I go. We ran to the toy aisles and everything.
But that's because that's a connective force that's never going to be touched. It's not going to be broken. It's indelible to his memory, and it becomes a strategy that even when he doesn't have you with him, he's going to go to that aisle himself, and maybe perhaps with his loved ones as he grows. And that memory is going to trigger this beautiful warmth and sense of self and safety. So I'm jumping in because I want, I definitely want everyone to really embrace that warmness and that safety you feel when you're playing, a tabletop game, or when you're working and playing with toys or video gaming, because because of the positive feeling that it gives you. So it is an extremely important strategy and very healing to take time for yourself. It's almost meditative, to be honest, to sit and play in a healthy, warm, and safe environment. Absolutely wonderful. So I'm gonna Kusuma says, when I buy toys now, they stay in their original package. They're my precious. Mm-hmm. Yes,
I agree completely. Yes, when I first started buying pop figures, I used to take, as soon as I got them, I took them out of the box, put them up on shelves, used to pose them with other characters and stuff. Now, when I realize how valuable they've become, I have closets and shelves of all boxed pop figures. I have the Beatles, and each one of them is worth over $150 each.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, when I get pops now, I don't do that. It clobbers me. I bought for my wife the Menomina characters from the Muppets, and if they would have stayed in the box, they're probably worth $300 each. And it's now they're
that's wonderful.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
But exactly. But it's awesome.
Yeah, well, it's the Buffy collection that happened with me. So I've got half of my Buffy collection, the original ones that came out, are out. They're in a glass case, but then you see the other ones behind them. It's like, oh, wait a second, I'm not touching those.
Exactly.
But
we have a question from Shirley. Do you guys mind if we put that up?
Sure.
No, please. Of course.
Absolutely. So it's a really important question. And I think that we're kind of going to go into some of these points with our next set of conversations. I create original characters and fanfics as an extension of myself, then being able to do things I couldn't really do myself. Is this healthy as long as I don't make it dominate my life? And the answer everyone's head is going
yeah. No, very much so. When I was in high school, I used to write my own comic books and stuff.
Yeah.
And I created, characters based off myself and, fanfic type stuff, like I was a companion to Doctor Who, or I was, an X-Men or something like that. And, it was like, oh, I was a mutant, or I was, anything like that. I was alongside Johnny Quest and Haji, it was always, great stuff, and it's totally healthy to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was right next to you. You didn't see me?
I did. I'd said hi, but you ignored me at that point.
Yeah.
I was a geek,
Yeah.
It's like we have the same journey. Honestly, that's an absolutely wonderful healing and coping strategy. That works for both. So when you're writing characterizations of the difficulties, the stress, or the good sides, or the things that you've experienced, and you're putting them down on paper in a character form, what you're doing is allowing your brain to take the thought process, move towards the actionability, the hand. We talked about it last week, and then you're putting it down, and it's being formulated into conscious thought, active thought, and concrete thought. And then that concrete thought, just you bringing the imagery and the emotion with it, and you create this beautiful fanfic or a comic or a piece of art. So, or to be fair, a scientific innovation. So all of that comes from the ability to tap into your imagination and the active creative self. And the active creative self, right, is the healing self in the long run.
Well, and it also goes to when we think of, for example, like athletes and performance or other things, they always talk about visualization, and there's that interesting thing where, in a sense, your brain can't tell the difference between reality or whether it's a visualization or something like a creation. So in a sense, those things that you're doing, your brain is taking them as you're actively doing them. So in other words, okay, we're currently in lockdown and I'm not, going to be able to go climb Mount Everest next week. But if I wanted to do research and write a story that had me doing it, in some respects, writing about that experience and what it would be like to go up a mountain or accomplish a thing. And so that's where creating fanfic, cosplay, role playing, not only does it allow us to, like you say, do those things, but in some respects, it kind of imprints the same pattern as if we were actually doing it. And that's really empowering, especially from a mental health and a coping perspective, because it allows you an outlet. It allows
that's what I love about cosplay. It lets these people become the characters or become somebody involved with those characters, or especially like the cross-gender characters. It is just amazing to see that, our friend Darren, who's part of our network, does Wonder Warrior, which is awesome. And he looks amazing. And there's so many, female Batmans or female, Superman or Wolverines. Hell, I've seen females dressed as Wolverine, and they have even the sideburns and the claws and such, which is awesome.
I mean, gender fluid.
Nick Fury. I do Nick Fury.
Yeah,
exactly. That's awesome. And
characters are really highly gender fluid. There's not any particular reason for anyone to really fall into any box when it comes to cosplaying. And my greatest wonders are to see everyone. My friend Cynthia Kirkland, who will come on one day, is this just brilliant cosplayer. Her Doctor Strange, my friends, is ludicrous. But wait, I wish I had a picture. She does Mysterio.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Nice.
She documented the creation, tick by tick by tick, of the creation of the layers of this cosplay, and just us watching it was healing. because we were like, whoa, this is unbelievable. Where's your innovative mind coming from? Cynthia is actually a designer and was one of the winners of her Universe fashion show a few years back, and just an absolutely brilliant designer. I cannot wait to have her hopefully on the show.
And the great thing with cosplay is people who feel bad about themselves, or people who feel, not comfortable with their identities and such, they get into cosplay and they become those characters. They forget, the world around them, and they feel better about themselves, especially when people are coming up to them wanting pictures taken, or people walking up to them and say, "What a great costume. That's really awesome." And that's one of the best feelings in the world, I'm sure.
Yeah. My youngest son has multiple diagnoses, but among them is anxiety. And he hates being around people, hates being around crowds. But we all did costume stuff. And he's been in a costume from the word go. Like, that's just what our family does. So what happened was the con that we used to have here always fell around Halloween weekend. And so we always had to do a little bit of juggling in terms of when Halloween fell. But he started, I guess he was about 6 or 7, and he became obsessed with Ghostbusters. So I made him his first Ghostbusters outfit. He went to his first con. You would never have guessed that was a child with an anxiety disorder because and that hated crowds, because he was in his glory. And what this whole thing about people acknowledging, people seeing this little Ghostbuster, and then an adult in a Ghostbusters costume found him. They took pictures. He even gave him his visor, all this other kind of stuff. And that kid became so addicted to going, like, he had to go to the con every year, because, and he actually stopped trick-or-treating at about 10 years old, because he was like, well, why would I want to be outside freezing my butt off in the cold for candy when I can hang out with all of these other people? And I remember the year that he went as Han Solo on a Tauntaun, he barely got to move around because people were taking his picture. But he was, again, you never would have guessed. So this is what's so empowering about cosplay, and what the freedom that it can give you, because you get to put on that either identity, or you get attention that is different than what you're used to, and it can just it was just such a glorious experience. And I mean, now we're part of a Ghostbusters group together, and he does, helps with the fundraising, and we do teddy bears picnic and all these other kinds of things, where, again, he's surrounded by 1,000 people at a time when it's not a pandemic, and you, again, never would guess. And it's like another identity.
And it's wonderful that comes out, and it happens more often than not, which is even more nice.
So I actually cosplay. I cosplay Professor McGonagall.
That is awesome.
Yeah,
that is really awesome.
One of the most empowered sensations and sense of being I've ever had was being that character. I do have just exactly what you're saying, and it's because I needed to break that bubble of self-confidence and body dysmorphia to be able to feel that I could embrace and embody McGonagall even in this person. And it was a huge breakthrough for me in terms of coping and with those feelings of insufficiency. And I can't say enough about how important cosplay is in terms of being a medium for really connecting to who you are or your own potential. So many people have become these amazing FX artists just starting in cosplay.
Yeah, of course. I've done 3 cosplays my whole life. The first one I did, when I think it was my second Dragon Con, I went as Silent Bob, and it was, people were actually taking my picture and everything, but I overheard some people say, I don't know if I want to ask him to take a picture, because he's so good. I don't know if that's how he just really dresses. So
I love it.
And so that was,
adore
and
it. So,
then when my son was like 8, I had me and him dressed up as the Blues Brothers, and it was so awesome that we did that. And he looked so serious, because of course he hadn't watched the movie yet, so he didn't know. So he thought he had to be all tough and everything. So every picture you see him like this, like, and it's just like, have fun with it. And it's like, really, Dad? And so it's awesome. And then a couple
I love
years
it.
ago, I went as the dude, comes naturally, so, it's pretty awesome.
I love it. I love it because I can. Anyway, we need to go on to the next topic, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
reason we
Yeah,
need to
sorry.
is because we have Kusuma, who's literally leading us into the next topic.
Yes.
I love when everyone's questions are perfect. So the connection with characters and superheroes is greater when they face the same challenges that you are. So literally, that was us moving into your conversation, Miss Sharon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's for me, again, there's so many of them. That's kind of like my part of my world. Like I said, the harnessing the inner Nick Fury and that kind of stuff. But when, especially in a year that we've been going through so much grief and grieving, to have WandaVision come up and watch the grief journeys of both Wanda and Monica, exactly, the total relatability. I mean, one of the first characters that I connected with when I was younger was actually, it was mutants, and it was Wolverine, it was Rogue, it was ones that I felt, it was that sense of isolation that I felt. And then as I got more, even more and more into the world, you'd find, oh, and there's another one that I relate to this part and that part, or what they're going through. And so, like I said, the with Wanda and Monica, having them go through grief this year, I think was a very healing process, especially the sense of her controlling a world. Because how many of us feel like, I mean, yes, I would love to have the ability to create a little hex around my neighborhood, little COVID-free hex, and keep it all safe. But again, that was a manifestation of our desire to control things when things are out of control. And so, yeah, I totally agree with the relatability. And we even saw a different kind of processing and grief coming up with Falcon and Winter Soldier. We've talked about them before, but again, it was that same thing of individual characters reflecting something that a lot of us really collectively could go through. So totally agree. And I think everybody should have their own little personal list of, here are the superheroes that I use to cheer me up, to relate to, doing the stuff that I do in mental health with reframing mental health diagnoses as associated with different characters. I use Wolverine for PTSD and complex PTSD. And I also use him as a reminder that as somebody that lives with multiple diagnoses and it can have crappy days, Wolverine's the king of the crappy days. But even on his crappiest day, he's still Wolverine. So guess what? I'm still good on my bad days. And if so I just grab my inner Wolverine and go, okay, I'm having a crappy day. I'm going to try to not put my claws out, lash out, and do whatever. But I also know that I'm still a rock star. I'm still a superhero.
That's a form of visualization, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what are we doing when we're tapping into that visualization as a strategy?
Again, we're tapping into all the positive neurochemicals. We're rewiring. We're also changing our thought pattern from, again, triggering the amygdala to something much more empowering. You're going into your prefrontal cortex and you're getting all the good stuff. And like Wolverine, you're kicking the anxiety's ass to the curb.
And like we said,
pardon my French.
No, you're correct. Absolutely.
But it's Wolverine. You have to talk that way.
Oh, you have to talk that way.
That's kind of actually pretty G-rated for Wolverine.
It's kind of interesting.
Very G-rated.
The entirety of WandaVision is Wanda healing and coping with severe PTSD and trauma response. That's where she's locked in, and she creates this huge physically manifested imagery. She creates the perfect world where she could be happy and everyone inside of that world would be healthy and healing. So people do have those experiences where that imagery can also go along with being locked into that moment and that trauma. But the goal is to be able to find the path to move from the imagery, from the thought of what's a healing thing, and not stay within it, but find the healing strategy and then make yourself your way back to your own self and say that's a strategy. That's a wonderful strategy. I can certainly think about it, tap into it, recollect it. It's in my memory, but it doesn't become me. I just want to.
Yeah.
The interesting
Well, and that was
part
the other
about
thing
that.
too, that the
Sorry, go
story
ahead.
arc there also took you from the simple, like the older shows where it was always, here's a little simple problem that gets wrapped up in half an hour. And then as TV shows and the sitcoms that she was following got more complex, that's where you see her coming out of it and finally breaking the cycle. So she was using her fandoms to cope.
Yeah,
She was.
She really was. It's exactly what she was doing.
But it was interesting because, you might have those coping and you're trying to deal with it, but you always have things hop in to the middle that throws little wrenches into it. And that's what you got with Agatha and coming in but also and taking advantage and taking advantages of it too. And it was just interesting because Monica's grieving and her getting her life, she was snapped out of existence, and she had to deal with, when coming back, that her mom was gone. She was there with her mom, basically recovering from chemotherapy, from having cancer, and then finding out that her mom passed away 2 years after she disappeared, and she missed it all, and having to deal with that, and her burying herself in her work to try to, figure out what was going on with Wanda.
Yeah. And burying herself and saving someone else and helping. And I think that was the other part too, is that she was one of the people that got Wanda. Like, in other words, you've got all, you've got Sword doing all this stuff. And he's like, no, like her, Darcy and Jimmy were like, they were her allies and she got it. Like, so she understood that she didn't take it personally that she was flung through walls and out of the hex, because she connected with her. And then she used helping Wanda as part of her own grieving process. So it was neat to see two of them side by side, but you nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. Exactly. Oh, that was so great. And I love that, we always want to go back to the grief process, because stress and worry, with the year and a half that we've had, is we're all still in a state of grieving. So I want everyone to recognize that and be aware that we are all with you, and that we join you, and that we support you. And that's one of the main reasons we're doing this, and the event that we're doing in June on the 27th, is to continue to have that wonderful dialogue together. So we're going to go on to another extremely healing character that Mike's going to talk to us about.
Oh, the Doctor.
The Doctor.
Speaking of the doctors, no, I grew up with Doctor Who. I discovered Doctor Who from a very, very young age. And this is also going to show how old I am. So, try not to laugh too much. But I discovered Tom Baker's Doctor when I was like 8 years old. And, I grew up in a fairly dysfunctional family, and, grew up, basically spending a lot of time on my own, reading comic books, doing drawings, playing with toys after school, and, watching a lot of TV, and, discovering Doctor Who, by accident, this English guy with, big curly hair, a, big scarf, and a big toothy grin, making sure that everything was always all right. And the Doctor was my hero growing up. And it was really amazing to, discover him. He tied right in because he had always had his companion with him, who was somebody that you could relate to. Oh, this is a person from Earth, or this is, a person, a metal dog. I've got a dog, he's got a dog, type thing. So you related to it, except for he traveled through time and space in a phone booth, and and it was always great as a kid. But as I grew up with Doctor Who, I never had anybody to share it with, because there really wasn't a lot of fandom locally in the United States, especially. Doctor Who was a British television show, and it was shown on PBS. People always used to make fun of me when I did in my artwork. Oh, Doctor Who. Oh, isn't that the show where you could see zippers on the back of the aliens' costumes, or, the strings on the spaceships? And it was always, something interesting with that. But as I grew up, I met people in college who liked Doctor Who too. I found my tribe, I found my people, and it was always cool to find that kind of thing. And it was a neat experience. And then as I got older and Doctor Who came back, I was able to share the Doctor with, my son and my wife, as, and friends, and, finding out at like places like Dragon Con has a Brit track, and there's all these Doctor Who fans, and it's just like, oh my God, this is great, and it's some of the best feelings in the world.
I remember that you talked about really tapping into the Doctor being a really great source of hope in humanity.
He was, because the Doctor always was, humanity was his favorite. Even though he's an alien, he always was. The humans were always his favorite race, and he was always there to protect them. But the Doctor was so different than something like Star Trek, because the Doctor always used intelligence. He always used hope. He never carried a gun. He always, he had a sonic screwdriver, but that just opened a door or something at the time. And that was what was great about him, because he made you think. He made you realize, there's other means than just blowing a hole or grabbing a lightsaber and chopping somebody in half. There's always another way through it. And that's what Doctor Who showed to people. It was more about intellect and more against brute force. And it was always, and for a kid growing up, it was a great thing to learn. And that's what, it was very inspirational.
So I'm going to put up a little bit of a piece that we wrote and we recently promoted for mental health, and I think it's really relative to what you're saying, because with Doctor Who and what we've learned through WandaVision and the characters like Jean Grey, which we didn't get to talk about today, hopefully we will, and some of the ones we're about to talk about, this is I think a lesson we've all learned. So I'm going to just share that, if that's okay. So let me actually move. Sorry, guys. I got to move the little banner. So I hope everyone can see it. And Mike, I am so sorry, because you were right. It covers your face. So
here, hold on. Hi.
There you go. Yeah.
There we go.
So basically, the lesson of love yourself when your pain seems limitless. Love yourself when worry overwhelms. Love yourself when being alone feels like loss. Love yourself when your mind is in chaos. Love yourself because you deserve it more than anyone.
That's awesome. I like that a lot.
Yep. And I think that a lot of the stories we're talking about, I don't think I know, really help to drive home this point, that in the long run, we really need to be presently aware that we are worthy of love at all times. And the first sense of love that we're worthy of is our own. And that's one of the lessons I always learned with Doctor Who. I thought that in the long run, even when the Doctor was arrogant and warded as a Time Lord, in the long run, it was about finding a sense of self, especially as the companion. So I love it. I thank you so much for sharing that. And I wanted to go ahead and kind of jump into a mutual conversation we kind of had ad lib and decided that we were going to go ahead and go on with this conversation. And I'm so sorry I couldn't grab the image for today, Mike. I kept trying, it wouldn't let me grab it. So but hold on, let me see. I think we have some comments and I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. Oh, Kusuma says, love Doctor Who. My car license plates are Doctor Who inspired.
That's because she's very cool. That's why.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, come on. And remember, she visualizes herself as Hulk.
I know. Just don't get her mad. That's all we have to do.
Yeah.
Just don't get her mad.
We got it. No, we're listening.
Yeah. Or aspire to be Professor Hulk, where he fuses the fusion of the Bruce Banner and the Hulk identity, the best of both worlds.
I love it. Oh my God. I love the and thank you so much, Shirley. She says that was really great advice. Thank you so much. our hope is that we'll be able to give something that advice or some kind of dialogue that will help you carry on and ourselves too. Remember, we're healing ourselves at the same time. So, speaking of healing, we had this great conversation about how music was really important in our life and how it really brought us a real sense of self and sense of awareness. So I myself in me, I wanted to just tap into, I am Indo-Caribbean and grew up here since I was 4. So I'm a very mixed cultural person. So almost any music I can really engage in. But as an Indo-Caribbean, the Bollywood community is a very strong connective force. And you're in Canada, so Sharon, I think you actually understand really well because there's a lot of
we have a strong community here, and no, Bollywood rocks.
Yep. And absolutely, it's actually the largest music and film industry in the world is the Bollywood industry, and the innovative sounds and musics that come and dance that comes, and that just comes so quickly from these wonderful artists. I'm like in awe of it. But what I thought I wanted to tap into, and then we'll go on to you and Mike, is how Bollywood is a community connector, as a matter of fact, and how we, as kids and families, developed social connections because we shared the love for the song, the story, the journey, and they were totally cheesy. Okay, just know it's all about the cheesiness, and because they built a world that made our lives more palatable and rich, and literally millions of Asians, and not just Asians, just saying that, across the world can sing the exact same song, guys, and invoke the exact single memory of when that song was sung in the movie. And it just becomes a part of associate itself. And when you have something that strikingly connective, like for instance, the Harry Potter community, when we talk about a part of the book or Lord of the Rings and we go all Tolkien on something, that strong social connective force, the visual side of it, but the auditory side of it, it's mind blowing what it can do for healing you at a cellular level.
Yeah.
I think you both have some music that you wanted to share.
Go ahead. If you're our guest, I'm excited to hear you.
I was going to go ladies first. So
no. Guest first. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, music, the great thing about music is it transports you. No matter where you are, it is the coolest technique to transport you to someplace where, because every song you hear has a memory associated with it. Like Neisha was mentioning, there you could tell in a certain movie where this one song was played or what scene it was, or if you're at the beach or if you were at an amusement park or you're on a road trip, something, a song will take you to that moment, and it's almost magical about music. And it doesn't matter what kind of music you're talking about, any song will do that to you. Hell, when my son used to play the a Wiggles song, I could I could remember one of the times we were in Chattanooga listening to it in the car, and we were all singing the fruit salad song together. But it's awesome. And that's what's great about music, that no matter what, you can, something that could take you back to your childhood, like Menominop or the Rainbow Connection or something. Or, when as you get older, this was your first kiss, your first date, your first, you heard this on your first road trip with somebody. Or, oh my God, I don't want to hear this song. This is somebody I broke up with years ago. And, it's like, or that, or you'll get rickruled. It just all depends.
You grew up with in the having the penultimate experience being at.
I was at Woodstock. I was one of those little babies you saw at Woodstock. I, probably bare-assed and everything, being two years old. I was there, but I grew up 1.5 miles from where it also took place. So it was a given that myself and my family was up there in upstate New York. And so we grew up with it, and my parents were hippies. My aunts and uncles were hippies. I had, that whole thing through my life. My uncle was a drummer in a band, and it feels like I grew up, with aunts and uncles known as the Grateful Dead, the Allman Brothers, and, Springsteen, Pink Floyd, Fleetwood Mac. I grew up with all that. I could name every Bee Gees song because of my mother,
Me too.
and so it's pretty
100%.
exactly. So, it just all depends. And that's
Or
what's
ABBA.
great about music. Oh, ABBA all the way. Come on, it's like you can never be in a bad mood listening to ABBA or listening to banjo music. Two things you just can't ever do.
True.
You know?
Oh my God, you're so right about that. Oh, what jumped into my head is Baby Shark. It is the one thing that makes me do this. But you know what? It's timeless. Everybody, you sing it and everyone connects to it. It's the same as a Bollywood song.
Oh yeah, exactly. But it's I could hum something and then all of a sudden I'm taken back to, because I got a photographic memory about memories, about of everything in my life. And I remember literally the first time I heard the song, or the first time, I saw something, or, I saw that, and I could even name the dates and everything. So it's pretty pathetic that, literally my mind flashes back to that point when I hear something or something.
So
absolutely.
Sharon and I are going to tap into the neuroscience of that really quickly. Music and healing sound as an expression of self and self-compassion creates, creating a playlist of songs, diverse words, positive affirmations. We want you to understand that sound comes in many, many different forms. So remember, there's musical theater, and there are many albums or CD albums. I'm dating myself now, of just poetry, for goodness sakes, Maya Angelou, and listening to the beautiful timbre of that voice, and how beautifully soothing it was. So, positive affirmations, inspiring lyrics and compositions. For instance, Man of Steel for me, when I need it, I will turn it on and I will just listen to Zimmer, because I know what that means inside of me. That those moments I visualize it. And then the song J-Ho from you guys, Slumdog Millionaire.
Oh, sure.
And people around the world are singing this song and understanding that it means glory and success. And and to sing that together, look how beautiful that is. So Sharon, you want to talk a little bit about the neuroendocrine side, and then definitely share your love of BTS.
Well, again, it's this idea that it's tapping into the positive chemicals, and the fact that all of our senses, in terms of how they're wired and what they do, have particular impacts. And what we hear has a really solid impact in terms of what it triggers in our chemicals, and can be one of the most instantaneous ways, right up there with the grounding yourself with a deep breath. A piece of music can be probably, aside from the instantaneousness of your breath, literally a couple notes or a couple of bars in can completely flick a switch. And I would say it's probably one of the most powerful mental health tools we can have in our utility belts, is having that positive playlist. And also, and again, it's not, when I say positive, it doesn't have to be, again, you don't have to be getting up and dancing. It doesn't have to be that sometimes it's about the music that makes you feel comforted at a time of joy, and actually comforted. It can be what inspires you. It can be even what allows you to cry something out and gives you the safe space to do that. And again, especially at a time when we've been going through a lot of isolation, and you maybe have to be either on your own or not around the people that you want, music can literally give you the big hug that you need. And some of the other work that I do, in addition to being like the comic book geek, is recently published a paper related to BTS, Bangtan Soyeodan, basically looking at their entire career. And what's happened is there's this phenomenon, and I don't think that they didn't consciously set out to be like a mental health band, and they weren't doing PSAs and that kind of stuff. But you look at, there's an arc that's entirely grounded in mental health psychology. It's grounded, you can actually see mental health practices modeled, but so much of it for the fans, they don't sit there and go, oh, well, that's a cognitive behavioral therapy technique. That's the nerd me that goes and finds that. But it's funny, the songs that the fans, that Army will talk about connecting tend to be a lot of the songs that have those mental health messages. So Spring Day is a song about loss and grief and missing. And I mean, I dare you to find an Army that's not in their top 10. There's other songs you talk about, Love Yourself. There was an entire collection of albums, and it was, and it involved the idea of loving yourself, facing yourself, and speaking yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you watched an arc of songs that talked about love and using the sarang, like love, and it was the chasing after the love of someone, the love that's incomplete, like you complete me, and then it went, and there was this arc of self distinction and individuation and pulling away from the love to get to the epiphany of self-love. And so these are the kinds of things that can be found in music. It doesn't always have to be that deep. And again, I'm sure the average fan is probably not going down the hole the way I am. But the part that's interesting is that millions of people around the world still find comfort in it. And the reason why is that because at a fundamental level, regardless of whether you've translated and analyzed the lyrics, it hits you in the heart. And it's flicking those switches. And it wasn't like when we think of some of the best, most powerful music, think of things like Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah.
Oh God, yeah.
There's an iconic song. Do you think he sat there going, okay, well, hold on, just what did Leonard Cohen know about neuroscience? I don't know. Probably nothing. But talk about a song that I defy anybody to listen to that song and not feel something.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's, it's the vibrational sense of self. And I know that that's my little terminology and I created for myself, but that's how neurodiversity works, is that we connect. And that's what ASMR is, by the way. When you have sound that's positive healing, it's about connecting at a cellular level where it then triggers emotional and hormonal responses for positive emotional response and reaction at the synapse of the nerve, which is then occurring throughout the body. It's not like it's occurring from head to toe. That's not how it works. It's literally a bathing of the self. And
it's a nice oxytocin bath.
When you get those out, right, exactly, you get the oxytocin bath. And I know, just understand that when you feel that sensation of this bathing warmth when you're listening to something like that, that's really what it is. Your body is responding hugely in gratitude that you're doing it, if that makes sense. But the sound does have to have a soothing nature for it, not to have the opposite hormones get released. So just kind of to know that. Okay, so I love that so much, and about the fact that you are very right. Empowering messages, healing models for mental health, and psychodramatic therapy. You're very correct. That is what music can give us. So that's what lyrics give us. But then that's also going back to what remember my question, to what Shirley asked us about writing fan fiction. It gives us the same thing, but that's a visual imagery cueing. So it's a little bit differently. But when we're looking at the video, we're actually also tapping into the visual auditory response and imagery as well. So it's a much bigger response. That's why
or singing in the car or singing in the shower.
Singing in the car.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's so great. You're right. Jeopardy does play in your head. You're correct. Da, 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 da. Who doesn't know that? I mean, here we are. We're a collective people. We might be Borgs. Just saying. We might be Borgs. And then you're right. ASMR in terms of meditative practice. So just to understand that Sharon and I both really agree that tapping into the right source of music is a meditative practice, and a very huge source of meditative practice in order to understand the self and being able to find a sense of calm for yourself. So making a list of those sounds and having it ready on a playlist, really important. inspirational conversations, or that wonderful dialogue or monologue that occurs in a movie that you just, every time you hear it, you know that it's just opening up the chakras and your energy is going to flow and you're going to see, okay, I got this.
Well, that's one of the great things about music is everyone's different too.
Yeah.
What, might affect you two might not affect me, whereas what I might like and take me to my happy place will, make you go, what the heck is Faber thinking?
And that's okay, because we are not the same people, and we wanted to make sure we talked about that today. Not one person in existence is the same, not even identical twins, people. We can't think the same. Our thoughts processes are all independent and individual to us.
Yep.
And our learned experience, our visual experience, is independent and individual to us. Even though you may be connected, yours is yours. And so I want you to always know that there's a beauty in your imperfectly perfect self and in your uniqueness. So we are wrapping up. We have just about 12 minutes or so left, and then to close. We want to go into two very last conversations. And the reason we're trying to tap into this is last week we had the server go down and we couldn't come back up to be able to finish the show at all. And we really wanted to make sure that we covered a few things that had to do with healing self as a connective nature, and in terms of the post-traumatic stress response. And then that's how we tapped into being part of the coping and the healing strategies. Oh, speaking of it going down, we lost
Wait a
Mike.
second. I was just going to say, I thought it was a meeting.
I didn't kick him out. That's crazy. Hopefully he'll cook right back in.
Oh, here he is.
No, we're about to have some really big thunderstorms here.
Oh no!
We just had the power flash. So
that's what happened. Oh my god! And we literally just talked about how my server went down.
And then all of a sudden you zapped away.
It's super interesting because each week of these three, we've had to deal with coping. Because the first week we didn't go live for 45 minutes into the show, except on one thing. The second week, the server went down and there was no way to get back on. And here you're in a glitch. I love it.
I'm sorry. It was like all of a sudden.
I love it. We got to show people that the world is imperfect and we just have to.
Exactly. All of a sudden, it's like the lights just dimmed in the computer. It's just like
super interesting. I love it. I just love it.
Sorry, folks.
Listen, years and years ago, I wouldn't have been able to. I would have been like, but now I'm like, what? That's just proving.
That's life. That's life.
Yeah.
As you're fidgeting with your necklace, like.
But you guys have figured out that this is a strategy for me because I need my tactile stimulus. So.
Oh, I know.
And I'm glad you brought it up because if you know me, you know I do it. And when for my own healing self, I always have on something like this, and I've talked about it a couple times because I need that sensation for grounding. Yeah, I really
play with the pen in my hand.
Yeah, it doesn't mean I'm panicked. It doesn't mean I'm stressed. It's just something I do because I know that it creates that neuroendocrine response that then releases oxytocin and then all of the other lovely things that then stop the flight or fright responses or keep them at bay and at check. So just so everyone knows, this is a teeny little strategy.
I kind of figured.
Yeah. No, you always see me fidgeting with something like this because I know myself. I'm a fidgeter, so it's just my nervous condition. So we're going to go into, and I'm going to do this because I didn't want to miss it from last week. I'm going into role playing right now and work as a strategy. So role playing, you're immediately going to connect to a role playing game, which is fantastic, right? That's what life is. So, back when we were kids, you played cops and robbers, or you played imaginary friends. That's role playing and that's world building. So I want everyone to understand that role playing has a huge wide berth to how you can identify what type of role playing works for you. And as a matter of fact, that's what cosplay is, right? You're role playing, especially when you're in a group, in a community of cosplay, all of you coming together to fuel each other's passion and hope that's engaging and engaging in these characters. So for me, thankfully, my daughter introduced me to, I was always aware of D&D. I've played as a younger person back in the 80s, etc. And it didn't stay part of my wheelhouse, but thankfully she introduced me to Critical Role. And Critical Role for me has been one of the most cathartic experiences I've ever had in my life. So I'm in campaign 2, which is it's led by Matthew Mercer. It's a group of nerdy ass voice actors coming together, and on Thursdays bringing us now 3 years of campaign, which are literally about to end. I think I may have watched the last episode yesterday. It may have closed, and then this Thursday I think there's a wrap. This set of characters. So I'm gonna just go quickly into it. So the Mighty Nine, which are these characters, for me, it's about loss of family structure. It's about loyalty. It's about looking at who you are, and about forgiveness, about releasing the stresses and the tensions or expectations of self. It's about letting go and accepting who you are, regardless of what you think someone else is going to think of who you are. And it's also this Critical Role and D&D in general gives you the opportunity to build a world as characters, and just as a viewer alone, being able to watch them work through their own actionability, their own emotionality, and their own mentality as they've struggled. These characters started this show in the depths of pain and sorrow, not knowing each other. Bo is a character who's a monk who had been sold to the cobalt soul, and never knowing that's what happened by her father as a kid because he couldn't deal with her independence and her angst. I mean, what parent does that? Then you have, not the brave, who is a goblin, who actually, because of circumstances, just is in a goblin body. That's an image of this rogue, this, goblins are hated, goblins are feared, no one loves them, and but in the long run ends up being the most endearing, um, caring, motherly, connective figure ever when she becomes her real true self, which is Veth. Then we have Caleb, who, my God, is a character who's a wizard who has to, uh, in order to show loyalty to the Cerberus Academy as a wizard and to be able to take over the world, literally, he has to meet the challenge of killing his parents to show loyalty. And he does it, and then goes into a mental fugue and breakdown from that loss. And this entire show is him finding his way back from that. I mean, it's just so much more than that. And I want to thank everyone so much in this show. And I did have the opportunity to talk to the actors about it. But there's a character up here. His name is Caduceus, but the character prior to him that Taliesin Jaffe played, his name was Molly Mock Tea Leaf. And I will cry. So bear with me because you guys know I'm a crier. Molly Mock's character passed away pretty adjacently to my brother passing away a few years prior. And I love Molly Mock because I felt like I was Molly Mock, a character who was born with an unknown self, and an unknown entity, and an inability to connect to his past because he was born without a memory, but knew that he'd lived through abuses, and just so much struggle in his life. And to watch Molly Mock grow as a character when he unexpectedly dies, because, well, no one wants their character to die, but he does. I had been living in the perpetuity of my grieving scope. I had sat quietly in it because, as a medical provider, as a family leader, as the person who holds people together, I hadn't lived through my grief. And when Molly died, I felt like my brother died. I felt like my soul was ripped away. And I couldn't understand that, but I grieved. And then I connected to the fact that the spirit of this character was just so strongly embodying of my brother's character and his beauty. And when I got the chance to meet the actor, Taliesin Jaffe, we shared an embrace, and I told him I want to thank you because I know that you left and that, things have changed and that you're the new character now who I adore. But I want you to know that that experience helped me to cope and deal and heal from my own grief arc, which I hadn't been able to, not from the first death of my brother 10 years prior to the death of my second brother, unexpectedly 7 years later. And so I really wanted to share the fact that I, you know, I really embrace the beauty, and the grace, and the forgiveness and the love and the caring that comes with engaging in a role-playing game, something like D&D, especially the Critical Role cast who put everything into it, because
Yeah.
they teach me how to stratify, analyze. They've told me how to understand negative inputs, simply not because they're telling me, but because they're going through it, and then I'm watching it, and then I'm learning it, and I'm analyzing it, and then they ended up becoming the front persons, the support systems for each other, diving into their own pain and suffering, and the willingness to allow themselves to be villainized as they uncover their own inner truths. They realize that they are not evil or hopeless or unloved. They are worthy of love, self-care, and even hope. And for me, that helped me to understand that I was worthy of all those things. Yeah, I understand. I've had a lot of training behind me, but that didn't mean that I always knew that. So I really wanted to share that with everyone, because this is such an important part of my healing and my catharsis, was engaging in the 3 years of the Mighty Nine, who become like family to you, you know. And I know that you wanted to talk a little really quickly, Sharon, about the importance
Well,
of
it's part of this. There's a storytelling process. And one of the things that it can allow us to do is, like the cosplay that we talked about before, act out different things, or fanfic. You can do these things that you wouldn't otherwise do, but it does allow us to process things. And I right now I'm involved in a D&D campaign, and again, we play it over Zoom because that's all we can do right now. But what was really interesting was that the characters that we're playing, and interestingly, I'm playing a goblin. And what I actually chose to do in terms of my own character was, it was around the time that The Mandalorian, I guess we started around this, I guess about second season-ish, when we started playing. And so I constructed a character with the idea of it being Grogu, but as a goblin. And again, but what happens if things went wrong? What happens if he's not doesn't get to a safe place, doesn't heal? What is this trauma going to do to him? And I flipped that into a goblin character, and it coincided when I was going back into, I had to reconnect with my own psychiatrist, because that's the other thing, you have to lead by example when you work in mental health. And I was having to reprocess and uncover some of my complex PTSD issues. And so it was really interesting to have that character to be there, and that became a place of literally acting out certain kinds of things, or processing, or by putting it into another character. You can look at it differently. Like, one of the things with PTSD is the difference is, you're not able to, when you look at your life as a timeline, you look back and you see different events, and something crappy could have happened. So if I had a fender bender, and okay, fine, insurance looked after it and I moved on, I see it as an event in the past. With PTSD, what it does is, it's a time machine, and it throws you right back into the moment. And exactly this, you get stuck in a spin cycle. So in a way, it afforded me the opportunity to break the negative time travel pattern by having it as another character, and that I could look at it almost like somebody else's issue. And so I could play out those things. And so that's the other part of role playing, and it's that storytelling. And it also allows us the opportunity to investigate, and this is where the fanfic comes in, to rewrite our narratives. Stop telling ourselves the negative stories that are impacting our stress, worry, and feeding our stress, worry, and anxiety, and giving us a brand new page to start a new chapter and to reframe and rewrite.
Absolutely beautiful. I've been putting some messages up, and I put this little one, Ira. While it is always best to believe in oneself, a little help from others can be a great blessing. And we need to be willing and open, and completely open to accept blessings, or and that sense of healing from very unexpected places. So I didn't expect it to come in that form, but darn if it didn't.
Yep.
If it hasn't continued to come in that form. 3 years of me still healing. So it's almost like my own a sense of mental health therapy and counseling, just working through those 3 hours of play. It helps me to actively do that. So if you engage in something like that healthfully, you're definitely engaging in a really good strategy. And role playing is very important in therapeutic milieu. In the counseling and the therapeutic plan. And as a matter of fact, you're always going to go through part of that. And I created UG based on the role playing and therapeutic milieu. It's actually what the research is based on. So just so everyone understands that. So we do have two last questions and then we're going to close. I just gave a quote from Neisha T Mulchan, who is a spiritualist who's gone through a life and death experience. That true self-love is having this level of trust in the universe, in your higher self. You know that even if you say no to an opportunity that seems great because you don't feel like doing it right now, or maybe you're too tired or overbooked, you understand if it's meant to be for me, it's going to come back when I'm ready. That is true self-love. And also remember to love yourself enough to not be hard on yourself, and know that when something is going to be right for you, it's going to be right for you. And that's a huge strategy that you carry with you every day. Just that sense of self-awareness and self-love and self-acceptance. If you need to, just go ahead and keep a little writing paper with you, a teeny little journal, and just every day write the things that you're going to accept about yourself and the things that it's okay not to do. Because why not? Don't be unforgiving for yourself. Have compassion for yourself. That's probably the most important thing. So I think we're gonna we wanted to touch on a few other things, but I think we're gonna have to hold off on that because we're already at 8:20 and it's closing time. I think we're gonna go ahead and go into closing. We have 3 last comments. I love it. So Kusuma said, my mantra is accept and let go. Absolutely. Which we just said. So yay. Absolutely. Shirley said, I've always liked Iroh's advice, period. Listen, Iroh is life. Just, if someone doesn't agree, that's okay. I forgive you. No, just kidding.
You accept and let go.
I accept and let go. Oh. And then I love this one. Trying not to be hard on myself has always been a challenge in my life. So I think that's kind of leading into our closing statements, a little bit about what we're going to talk about. Listen, does anyone want to answer Shirley on this one? That's okay.
I would just say that that's one of the first things, is that we're often our worst critics because we internalize expectations that we think are being placed. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are expectations coming from the outside world, but we tend to amplify them and hold on to them and internalize them. So we usually tend to be our biggest critics. And it's the idea of, again, that's where I go back to that Wolverine thing, and that, if Wolverine's entitled to have a crappy day, I can cut myself some slack. So sometimes we do actually have to reframe it through again, an external, and maybe it's a fan-based or a fandom related thing. Cut ourselves the same slack. Talk to ourselves the way we would talk to a loved one. Talk to, if somebody else was going through this. Sometimes when we're in our own heads, again, we double down on ourselves. Oh, I should know better. That kind of stuff. And so no, show yourself love yourself. Self-compassion is always the first thing.
Perfect.
Who's always going to be your biggest fan is yourself, and you're the biggest rooting section.
Yep.
And it should be that way, as a matter of fact, because the soul is your support, and you are the support of the soul. So it's this beautiful dichotomous relationship of self that you are absolutely should be engaging in. Contrary to what anybody else said, that's not an egotistic thing. That is part of the journey of the ego. So,
exactly.
So I'm just going to make a little bit of closing remarks, and then we're going to tell everybody where we can find each other. So participating in most of the mediums that we talked about today for healing strategies, which was really a huge, beautiful birth of activities that we can share in together as a community and as self. Each of these are active platforms for us to process, to ingest, to listen, and then to digest, and then to ponder, and then to process a little more, but then to formulate and to find balance in our own stress, worry, and tension that affects our physical well-being. So in the long run, what we're giving you is opportunities to tap into healing and coping strategies that can help us to find balance, to find physical well-being, which will then reduce our stress, tension, and all of those symptoms we listed at the beginning of the show. Every one of these is a form of connective world building. And the medium you love the most that is positive and healthy can certainly become your strategy for your own journey. My hobby, interest, and ingesting of a sensory input can never be the same as yours, but we can have a common medium that is a guide and resource for coping and for healing. So these mediums allow us to become part of a momentous moment, activity or action that inspires a feel good sensation, joy, positivity, compassion, creativity, or innovation. And then when we're having all of that as what's blooming within us, the negative things kind of just get suppressed and actually just fade away. So, you know, guys, I hope that we were able to help all of you today and we were able to give you enough strategies that you could at least find one that really makes a lot of sense for you and connects to you. And I want to thank my guests so much for being here with us today. We really had so much more to go into, but it's only, we don't want the shows to be too
We
long.
could be here for hours if left unattended.
So what we're going to do is go ahead and let you both tell us a little bit about where we can find you. Mike, where can we find you?
You can find me as part of the ESO Network at esonetwork.com, where all our shows are up on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, anywhere you can find a good podcast. Even any of the ESO Network shows are there. And, we do a weekly Earth Station 1 podcast. And, we have a great Facebook group up on Facebook, obviously, under ESO Network. Please check us out. We talk about all things geeky up there, and we have some amazing conversations. So try to find us and, just stop by and say howdy.
Absolutely. Absolutely love it. Okay. How about you, Miss Sharon?
Well, again, the work that I do, a lot of it is facilitation work and again, helping people train their brains. So I do that through Speak Up. So you can visit my soon to be updated website. It's still in the old form. So it's www.speak-up.co. So it's CO. Also on Facebook under Speak Up. And I have a page there and post the kind of stuff that a lot of it is collaborative work as well. And that's why I'm really proud to be a part of Diversely Geek and the fact that I get to talk to my people on a regular basis here and meet new ones.
Absolutely love it. Do you want to chat a little bit about our June 27th event? And then we will go ahead and we'll close. I finally, okay, my dear. I was all of this time working really hard to get that logo to show. I apologize.
Oh, there it is.
Podcast. There we go. Yay.
Yay.
Guys, tap in Earth Station 1, and I am lucky when I'm able to be a guest on there.
You're always welcome. It's a ton of fun.
Oh, it really is. Such crazy conversations, but they're so good. Really stretch my brain. I love it. And then this is Sharon. Let's Speak Up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the transparency.
Yeah. I have to get one that has a solid background. I didn't realize that was going to happen.
Wow. Okay. We'll get it. And this is Speak Up right here.
Yeah.
And this is her lovely motto.
Embrace your superpowers. Yeah. 2 programs, Embrace Your Superpowers and Bulletproof to Stigma.
Exactly. Perfect. And we're going to be working on that more. So on June 27th, the team is coming back together again for PTSD and Anxiety Awareness Day to bring you a one-day virtual event. It's 7 panels and 2 of which are going to be open sessions with Q&A for fans to be able to ask us directed questions and us to be able to answer as a clinical team. And we're bringing you more of a clinical team and a ton of fantastic geeky nerds from across the spectrum of fandom, which I don't even want to list it, but just please pay attention to the Diversely Geek Facebook page, the Twitch, to the YouTube, to Twitter, to Instagram. The announcement and the press release will be coming out pretty soon. And June 27th, please hold that day. We're going to be on live from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Between that time. It's going to be literally fantastic. Thank you guys so much for being here with us today. And remember that embracing and expressing your inner geek in your daily life is a credible supportive source for establishing positive self-identity, self-acceptance, and building healthy connections. Yeah. It's not a question anymore, people. It is a fact.
That's awesome. I love it.
And we have the research to prove it.
All right, my BG lovelies, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for all of our guests. Thank you for all of our audience who asked fantastic questions. And I cannot wait to see you again. Please check us all out. Check out all the fantastic work everyone is doing. And everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, and we love you all.
Peace.